The Berlin Wall was built with incredible speed in August 1961. In a Cold War between powers that had once defeated Nazi Germany, it was another crisis.
As an additional boost to the airlift,
12 years earlier, an American, British and French airlift had defied a Soviet blockade of West Berlin. Now East Germans and East Berliners were fleeing a Moscow-imposed communist regime. West Germany's booming free market economy, fostered by the Allies, was one reason, but many, says Axel Klausmeier, wanted to escape political oppression. The historian is now responsible for the Berlin Wall Memorial.
A sixth of the entire population had fled the country by the end or by mid-1961. So these were nearly 3 million people. So, and the regime, the Communist Party, saw only one exit strategy: to build the wall to keep people in.
Berlin was deep inside Soviet-dominated East Germany. Since the Second World War, a British garrison had occupied one of the city's 3 western sectors. They were Britain's only soldiers behind the Iron Curtain, and patrolling the wall was routine. It's what Barry Davis did when he first went to Berlin in the 1960s with the Royal Military Police.
There was a patch of sand that actually was raked over so that they could ensure that no footprints had crossed it. Secondly, there was an area of what they called trench warfare for tanks, where they caused crosses in the ground of metal. And then you had the other area which had tripwires before you even got as far as the wall. And just before the wall itself, there was an extra town, a fence, which was of a barbed wire variety, and so you had to get through that as well. This was formidable.
Any attempts to cross the barrier risked certain death.
There were 140 people that died only here in Berlin because the border guards had an order to shoot to kill. So anyone who would try to cross the wall would be in danger to be shot.
The wall effectively created 2 cities, West Berlin, bustling, brightly lit and modern, East Berlin, drab, colourless and decaying. Which possibly explains why, in spite of all the risks, there were escape attempts, some successful.
There were tunnels dug here in this street. Others escaped with a hot air balloon. Others hijacked a whole train and made it into the West. So there are a great number of stories.
But perhaps the greatest escape was on the 9th of November 1989. It was all because of a hapless, poorly briefed East German official. He'd mistakenly told reporters that citizens could apply to travel to the West immediately. And that was it. Thousands rushed to the Berlin Wall, and for the first time in 28 years, it opened. Robin Merrill works for the German international broadcaster Deutsche Welle. 30 years ago, he was in Berlin reporting for British Forces Radio, BFBS.
They had experienced 28 years of a divided city, particularly this city, but a divided country as well, but particularly this city with a wall running down the middle of it. And suddenly, without any blood being shed, it was open again, and it was never going to come back. I was actually at the wall as it was getting dark, and I noticed a very old lady standing at the wall and sort of doing this, sort of bowing her head with tears in her eyes and just touching the wall. This is from the east side, which you couldn't touch the wall there.
Robin Merrill stayed in Berlin after the wall fell. 30 years on, he says it's a different place.
Before the wall came down, West Berlin was possibly one of the safest places in the world to be. For instance, my wife never locked her car. You couldn't steal it. There was nowhere to take it because you're surrounded by the wall. Now, it's much more cosmopolitan. You hear every language in the world here. It's much like many other cities. And now the trendy part of Berlin is actually in the east.
50,000 people are now moving to Berlin every year. Since the wall fell, the city's population has grown from 3.5 million to 4 million. Back at the Berlin Wall Memorial, The clear message from its director is never forget.
The more people come, the more hope we have that they learn lessons from the past and that that we can really convince them that democracy is not perfect on the one hand, but still the best system possible.
Rob Olver, Forces News, Berlin.